catastrophic fire guts the Notre Dame Cathedral, a symbol of beauty, culture, and history in Paris, scarred. What was lost and the promise to rebuild.
Alberta is ready to vote, and we are here in battleground Calgary.
Our province is hurting big time.
Jobs, the economy, and of course pipelines. What's at stake for the province? And yes, for the rest of Canada.
A developing story in BC. 4 people are dead after a shooting spree in a small city. But what was the motive? This is The National. A thick plume of smoke filled the Paris sky today, a devastating sight as the Notre Dame Cathedral was consumed by flames, smoldering still hours later. The majestic structure dates back more than 8 centuries, a crowning attraction in a tourist mecca. For Christians, especially Roman Catholics, the loss is deeply felt on this Easter Holy Week. Until today, Notre Dame de Paris was one of the world's great cathedrals, a place of pilgrimage and prayer for the faithful, but also revered for the beauty of its proportions, the genius of its design, and a setting that breathes history. It sits on an island in the River Seine, in the heart of central Paris, a draw for tourists from around the world, to the east of the Eiffel Tower near the Arc de Triomphe, and just down the river from the Louvre with all its treasures. Today, Parisians watched in shock as one of their treasures burned and crumbled. Thomas Dagla takes us through a shattering day.
Hellish. A cathedral that stood for 800 years brought to its knees in just over an hour. Notre Dame, the symbol of medieval Paris, known to draw huge crowds year-round, but not like this.
Everyone here is stunned, and just, as you can see around me, people are just watching. Even the cruise ships are just waiting and watching in shock.
Hundreds of firefighters battled in precarious conditions, facing relentless flames, and the sight of history going up in smoke. This is a catastrophe, said Notre Dame's rector, Patrick Chauvet. I'm very upset. All I can do is pray. The cathedral's towering spire, famous in its own right, went down to the sound of disbelief. It's unbearably sad, he says. This is France that's being lost.
Paris is crying now, not just me.
Investigators suspect it was all an accident as Notre Dame undergoes multi-million-dollar restoration work. Just days ago, crews removed priceless statues from above, unknowingly saving them before the roof was destroyed. The French president met with first responders and emerged tonight with a promise. We will rebuild this cathedral all together, said Emmanuel Macron. It's part of France's destiny. Crowds cheered on firefighters for having saved what they could. Those 2 famous towers are still standing. Crews used flashlights to search for damage well into the night. But how much has been lost? The answer might be just as jarring as the sight of this giant gutted. Thomas Dagla, CBC News, London.
And let's take you to the scene of that fire now. Radio-Canada's Jean-François Bélanger is outside the cathedral. And Jean-François, what are you seeing there tonight?
And it's been hours, and we can still smell the smoke. We can still see ash falling down from the sky, and there's still hundreds of firefighters hard at work trying to contain the blaze. They've hosing down the cathedral from adjacent buildings. Now we're told that the worst has been avoided. We don't see any more flames raising from the sky from the building, but they're going to be hard at work for the remainder of the night. That's for sure.
You know, we got a sense through the day of how devastating this was for Parisians, but you're in the city. Tell us more about the mood of the people.
It's in the middle of the night here, Ian, but there's still hundreds of people gathered around here, faithful that are praying, singing religious songs, you know, and the Cathedral Notre Dame is really close to the heart of not only Parisians but all the French people for, of course, religious reasons, spiritual reasons, but also for cultural reasons. All roads lead to Paris, all French roads lead to Paris. The kilometer zero is in front of Notre Dame Cathedral, so it's really dear to the heart of all the French, and of course it will be rebuilt. That's what the President Emmanuel Macron promised everyone tonight.
All right, Jean-François Bélanger in Paris tonight. Thank you.
A pleasure.
The magnitude of loss is huge. Not only is the skyline changed, so much history went up in flames. Briar Stewart looks at the treasures that lived within the Notre Dame Cathedral and what it stood witness to over the centuries.
For centuries, Notre Dame has towered over Paris, a medieval holy site. Its Gothic architecture, a backdrop to history. Napoleon was crowned emperor here. Its bells marked Paris's liberation during the Second World War, and crowds gathered in front to celebrate.
So in the history of architecture, it's hugely important, but it's also one of those buildings that's really embedded itself in our culture, in our Western imagination.
Notre Dame holds an unmistakable allure. It's renowned for its flying buttresses and stained glass rose windows, and it inspired Victor Hugo's novel, The Hunchback of Notre Dame. This art historian studies the cathedral and has even climbed it. She says much of the building's original contents were destroyed during the French Revolution, but it still housed several religious relics and pieces of art.
It's a huge loss. In terms of what we can learn about the past, it's a loss because every little thing that still remains today is really precious.
This is what the altar looks like now. Some good news: it appears the crown of thorns, said to have been worn by Jesus Christ while he was crucified, was saved from the fire. Crews also battled to try to save the iconic bell towers. The bells inside were replaced in 2013 to mark the 850th anniversary of the cathedral. But for Matthew Whitfield, it was Notre Dame's two organs that left him awestruck. He visited the cathedral because he wanted to hear them for himself.
It's an entirely different experience being surrounded by that grandeur and the density of sound that these instruments produce. It was truly extraordinary.
Even though officials say the cathedral's structure has been saved, the sense of loss is still profound.
Higher and higher it goes, reaching up.
Because while it's withstood wars and revolutions and been repaired before, it's not yet clear just how devastating this fire has been. Briar Stewart, CBC News, Vancouver.
The sense of loss was also felt by the crowd gathered outside the cathedral.
They've been singing for quite a while now, like it's been an hour or two, but it's kind of an eerie atmosphere.
A spontaneous moment of song and prayer. We'll have more from those gathered in our moment later in the hour. For now, let's go to Alberta, and Rosemary, you're in Calgary again for us tonight.
That's right, Ian. Tomorrow is election day, of course, in this province, and polls open in just hours from now. We're here in Calgary, a key battleground, the choice for voters: 4 more years of an NDP government or a return to the tradition of a Conservative premier. Both main contenders say that after 28 days of contentious campaigning, the options are clear.
Just one more sleep. One more day before Albertans have an opportunity to vote for change that gets our province back to work and that gets Alberta back on track.
I ask again, as I did at the outset, who do you trust to fight for you?
NDP leader Rachel Notley spent part of this last day campaigning here in Calgary. Her main rival, Jason Kenney of the United Conservative Party, focused on Edmonton. But no matter where you go, at the heart of that decision for so many Albertans, their bottom lines. Alberta has been rocked by collapsing oil prices. The Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion project is on hold, and more than 170,000 people here are looking for jobs with no luck.
This election is about 3 key things: jobs, the economy, and pipelines, right? Jobs, the economy, and pipelines.
We can build the economy, we can create jobs, and we can do that while still supporting healthcare and education.
So on the eve of such a crucial decision, our focus tonight, what's at stake for Albertans and, yes, the rest of Canada. How voters feel about their options in this election may depend a whole lot on where they live. The issues, of course, play differently for rural and urban voters. But as Carolyn Dunn explains, there is one thing just about everyone can agree on. They don't like the tone of this whole campaign.
At the Chuckwagon Cafe in Turner Valley, they'll make you a farm-to-table breakfast with a side of politics.
Our province is hurting big time. I don't believe that this current government has been that favorable towards oil and gas.
I think consistently the one thing everybody wants is people to go back to work. You know, people to be able to afford their mortgages comfortably, people being able to put their kids in camp.
The economy is dominating this campaign. For voters who want change, Jason Kenney's promises are resonating. But that issue is playing differently in Edmonton, where Rachel Notley has strong support.
The reality is everybody inherited this current economy and somebody had to do something, and stimulus spending has always been proven to be a far more beneficial way of getting out of it.
I'm going to choose the party that I think is going to provide the most support for the most amount of people, and so for me that's the NDP.
Those polarized views have led to an incredibly negative campaign.
The reason campaigns go negative is because negative campaigning is quite effective, right? Negative news catches your eye.
But it can be exhausting. In this coffee shop in battleground Calgary, they set up cardboard cutouts of the front-running leaders.
The election is pretty serious for a lot of people and gets a little heated at times, so why not have a bit of fun with it?
Betty Hegarett was happy to voice her priorities to the leaders, cardboard or not.
I'm very concerned about education, about the quality of education. I have someone in my family who is gay, so gay rights are very important to me.
And Phil Ponting has advice for the winner, whomever that is.
Consider what all Albertans and all Calgarians think needs to be done. Not dogmatically, but pragmatically.
Carolyn Dunn, CBC News, Calgary.
We are tonight in the riding of Calgary-Buffalo. It is right in the heart of a city that has a history of picking the party that wins. They've done it in every provincial election since 1948. About a quarter of the seats in Alberta's legislature are from Calgary. And those broad issues the province is facing right now are very personal to voters here. The unemployment rate is the second highest of any major city in Canada. A quarter of the office buildings sit empty. Naheed Nenshi is Calgary's mayor, and I spoke with him earlier about how important this whole vote is for his city. So, Mayor, how has this election been for a mayor of Alberta's biggest city? How have you felt about this?
Frustrated more than anything else, because this election has been about many things, and many things that we should talk about. We should be talking about social issues. We should be talking about how the world is changing. But there really hasn't been a lot of vetting of the economic plans of the parties, and that's what bugs me. So you look at those beautiful buildings and that gorgeous skyline, 1 out of 4 of them is empty right now, meaning that small businesses across the city are being faced with crushing property tax increases. People always forget that the property tax isn't just a city tax, it's also a provincial tax. And I really haven't seen from any of the parties a real economic plan that helps create jobs, that helps return Calgary to its place.
Even though Calgary is so important for winning an election, they haven't come up with a plan to deal with exactly what you're talking about?
You know, I love politics, right? But I love politics when it's about stuff. And so, you know, Premier Notley has spent most of the campaign in Calgary. Mr. Kenney has spent a ton of the campaign in Calgary. This is the first provincial campaign where none of the party leaders came to see the mayor, which I find odd. But despite all that, we're not really talking about what we can do. You know, Mr. Kenney wants to reduce corporate taxes over 4 years. It's going to create a bunch of jobs, Laffer curve stuff. Premier Notley thinks that we're going to create a whole bunch of diversified green energy jobs and so on. Both of those are fine in theory. Neither of them helps the dry cleaner who's going out of business this week. And that's what we have to focus on.
Would you agree, though, just to the people that I've been talking to over the past day or so, nobody thinks anybody can solve all these things?
Well, here's the issue, right? Neither of these parties, I should say none of them, because there are 5 parties, None of these parties are going to get the Trans Mountain Pipeline built 5 minutes earlier than any other party. Some of them might get it built slower, as a matter of fact, if they overplay their cards. But I'm not sure that the average voter has really engaged at that level. Because I think a lot of people think either once we re-elect, you know, the NDP and the UCP kind of goes away, will be a golden economic age. A lot of other people think as soon as you elect the UCP and get rid of the NDP, the honey will flow. Neither of those things is going to happen. And what I was really looking for was very practical, short-term things we can do, such as a property tax holiday for small businesses, things like that, to really move forward, and I didn't see any of it.
Let me end on this. What happens Wednesday? Like, you're just going to live with whatever you get. So what happens for you Wednesday?
Well, today I'm wearing red. Go Flames, go.
Yeah, I'm ignoring this for the record.
Normally I wear purple. Right. And the reason I wear purple is because it's red and blue. I haven't figured out how to get orange in there. I like your scarf. You managed to get everything in there. But I've had 5 premiers since I've been mayor, and I get to work with anybody because my only horse is Calgary. And so Wednesday morning, I go back to the books, read their platforms, and figure out how to help them make Calgary better.
So 28 days of campaigning, all comes down to tomorrow, and in a new twist, perhaps to the day after too, because of changes to how advance voting works here. Hundreds of thousands of ballots won't actually be counted until Wednesday. Advance voter turnout in this election wasn't just high, it was in fact record-breaking. An estimated 696,000 ballots were cast, almost triple the number from the last provincial election. About a third used the new Vote Anywhere rule, which let them vote outside their own riding, think students or workers in the Alberta oil fields. But those 223,000 ballots won't start being counted until Wednesday, and it could potentially take days, which means some tight races might not even have a winner tomorrow night. Those who didn't vote in advance may still be deciding just who to support before they head to the polling station tomorrow. Just ahead, my conversation with 3 undecided voters. What issues they're concerned about, that's coming up.
No doubt the federal government is watching Alberta for how its next government will deal with the new federal carbon tax. Already Ontario is challenging Ottawa in court, Saskatchewan too. It was imposed on 4 provinces without carbon pricing plans of their own. Ontario says the tax is unconstitutional, but as Jamie Strachan tells us, some call the court challenge a political ploy.
Climate action needs support! Get Ontario out of court!
Outside of Ontario's highest court, the message of protesters was clear.
I think this is a waste of money to fight a good policy that's going to help the health of Canadians.
This court is now in session.
Inside, the legal question. Can Ottawa tax provinces it says aren't doing enough to fight climate change?
What this reference is about is whether Parliament can impose its solution to the problem on the provinces.
The Ford government is spending $30 million to fight Justin Trudeau's carbon tax. Ontario's Environment Minister says this case isn't about denying climate change, but allowing some provinces to design their own solutions.
It's bad for Ontario families, bad for Ontario businesses, and we will use the tools we need to get the message out.
Experts say this case likely won't succeed, but that doesn't really matter.
2 things. I think he's pandering to his base. He's delivering on a promise that he made when he was campaigning, and he's trying to tell the federal government to back off.
Part of that is legally requiring gas stations to display these stickers or face a $10,000 fine, all months before a federal election.
And now he's requiring a sticker, somewhat Orwellian, requiring a sticker that's misleading.
Federal Environment Minister Catherine McKenna scoffed at the legal challenge.
The science is clear that Canada's warming at twice the international average. We've seen huge impacts of climate change. Just last summer, forest fires, extreme heat, killing people.
Experts say even if Ford wins, he may lose.
More than 50% of Canadians are very frightened about climate change. They want clean energy. So I don't think there's a lot to be gained here.
The federal government makes its case tomorrow. Jamie Strachan, CBC News, Toronto.
We're following a developing story tonight in BC's Okanagan Valley. One man is in custody after a string of shootings in Penticton that left 4 people dead.
We don't know the motive behind it all at this point, but we do know that it was someone
all of the individuals were known to each other.
Shootings took place in a 5-kilometer radius. Police were first alerted around 10:30 in the morning Pacific time of gunshots being heard. Then came another report, shootings at 2 homes that were side by side. About an hour later, the 60-year-old suspect turned himself in.
It really comes to the heart of a small community like Penticton and the whole area about what we're doing and about what happens in our community.
Police haven't confirmed the identity of the victims, and they're continuing to investigate.
Ahead on the National, we head back here to Calgary to sit down with some voters who have struggled to make a decision as they get ready to cast their ballot.
First, though, Donald Trump is being accused of inciting violence as his new political target receives death threats. And we'll look at the push to put an age limit on pressing the like button on social media.
Social media is just honestly like destroying people's mental health, especially kids.
An estimated $700 million of suspected dirty money poured into BC casinos between 2010 and 2017. Bags and bags of suspicious cash flowing through the system, ignored warnings of horrendous money laundering. How was this allowed to happen? Our investigation began in 2004. A lawsuit between BC's Great Canadian Casinos and a Texas company reveals allegations of loan sharking in BC casinos.
We've been advised from our bosses that it's not really our business to stick our nose in the business of the loan sharks, that we're there to just watch the games.
CBC initiates a Freedom of Information request for BC gaming documents. They took 4 years to obtain. The documents reveal a troubling pattern of suspicious transactions. The suspicion is that gangsters are using the casinos to launder the proceeds of crime. CBC launches an undercover investigation.
Why don't you guys count the cash?
And successfully uses money laundering techniques to launder $24,000.
Yeah, no problem. How is it that the media, in their own investigation over 4 years, were able to expose this when successive ministers knew nothing about it?
A man walks into a casino with $1.2 million in chips. He asks for and receives a letter saying the money is casino winnings. 2 days earlier, at a different casino, a man had brought in $460,000 in 20s. Casino staff don't flag the transactions as suspicious. In the months that follow, massive amounts of suspicious transactions occur.
The casino industry in general was targeted during that time period for what may well be some very sophisticated money laundering activities by organized crime.
How can you be certain that they're not laundering drug money?
Well, you'll never know 100% all the time. There's certainly the checks and balances in place, and I'm satisfied that we're doing as good a job as anybody else.
Dollar figures for suspicious transactions continue to rise dramatically.
They haven't done, I think, any meaningful changes since that time, and that shows by the FOI results that CBC has obtained.
Ilhan Omar is hardly a household name for most Americans, but the U.S. president seems determined to change that, repeatedly singling out the controversial Muslim congresswoman on Twitter. Democrats say the attacks are fanning anti-Muslim sentiments. Omar says she's getting death threats, but as Paul Hunter tells us, Trump isn't backing off.
Omar does not represent Minnesota, does she?
And so it is, the United States yet again grows ever more divided, this time over Ilhan Omar, a Somali American and U.S. Congresswoman who's Muslim.
She's just attacking President Trump. She needs to back down. What is her agenda?
It's all about a speech by Omar last month to the Council on American Islamic Relations, or CARE. In it, she noted too many Muslims in America are ill-treated because of their religion. While referencing the 9/11 attackers, CARE, she said,
they recognize that some people did something and that all of us were starting to lose access to our civil liberties.
Branding her dismissive of 9/11, Republicans jumped on the phrase, "Some people did something." Here's the front page of the New York Post. But Omar underlined her point was that Muslim Americans must be treated as equals.
I took an oath to uphold the Constitution. I am as American as everyone else is.
Ratcheting the debate, this tweet by the president, linking her comments with those images and the phrase, "We will never forget." Says Omar, death threats, citing Donald Trump's words, have followed. Today, Trump called her an out-of-control, ungrateful author of hate statements. Say Democrats.
It's not only inspiring death threats against her, but it's deepening the sort of worst types of the worst streams in our country of hatred and bigotry.
Not far from those demonstrators backing Trump on this today, others who made clear they stand with the Congresswoman. A noisy stare down. While on Capitol Hill today, security was stepped up for Omar. Paul Hunter, CBC News, Washington.
We'll head back to Alberta with Rosemary next.
When network and party officials met this morning, Liberal Representative Keith Davies said his party still won't accept the proposed TV debate between Clark Trudeau and Broadbent. The networks are insisting the program use the same format as last year's TV debate that attracted a phenomenal 7 million viewers. The Conservatives and NDP have accepted those conditions, but the Liberals are objecting, particularly to the use again of network journalists on the program. And rather than having the election issues debated by just the leaders, the Liberals are sticking to their demand for a series of debates between party frontbenchers. Their stonewalling brought an angry response today from the Conservatives and NDP.
It's very obvious, ladies and gentlemen, that Mr. Trudeau has made a travesty of these meetings. That gentleman had no intention whatsoever of taking part in any debates. And his instructions were to get him off the rails at any cost, and that's what's happened.
Astonishing as it may seem, gentlemen, the Liberal Party seems afraid to present their leader to the Canadian public in a debate.
But Senator Davey hinted the Liberals might not bow out of the leaders' debate, that today's Liberal rejection of the network proposal may not be final.
The network proposal is still on the table, and we are still seeking ways of expanding the format and in opening up the debate process for a wider discussion of issues.
Network officials, though, said they aren't prepared to meet Davies' demands, and they've given the Liberals until next Friday to change their mind. The hassle over the issue is an ironic reversal of last year's situation when the Tories objected to the leaders' debate, then decided it would be too politically damaging for Clark not to take part. This time it's the Liberals who don't want the spotlight on Pierre Trudeau. But unless they change their mind, Trudeau could well be branded for the rest of this campaign as the leader who chickened out. David Halton, CBC News, Ottawa.
Joe Clark's campaign has taken on something of a stand-up comic tone lately. While he's been trying out lines about Pierre Trudeau since the beginning of the race, it's only in the past few days that he's been given both the material and the large Tory crowds to work with.
I can't think of any other leader in any other country, anywhere in the world, who has ever run for office on the slogan, "Elect me and I'll quit."
Clark's one-liners touch all subjects, like Trudeau's infrequent campaign appearances.
The Liberal Party has launched a peekaboo campaign. They let Pierre Trudeau out for an hour each day and hope nobody will notice him.
And Trudeau's style.
Last year in May, you remember he was the gunslinger. He was going around looking for somebody to shoot at. Now he's got a new mask. This year he's the fugitive.
The partisan crowds do love it, and so does Clark. So much so that when his campaign moved into Ontario today, the routine was enshrined as a standard feature. The crowd in Sarnia had to wait to hear about energy policy so Clark could fire a few more rounds.
They know that they were more popular when they had nobody leading them than they are when they have Pierre Elliott Trudeau leading them.
The Tories realize, though, that well-received jokes at rallies don't guarantee success on voting day, just as Pierre Trudeau's Joe Clark jokes didn't help his cause last May. One of the more remarkable features of this campaign has been how the leaders of the two major parties have virtually reversed their roles. Whereas last spring it was Joe Clark running the safe campaign and Pierre Trudeau doing the ridiculing, this time the opposite is true. It all seems to indicate that electoral strategies have much less to do with party philosophies and political personalities than they do with who's ahead or behind in the Gallup poll. Mark Phillips, CBC News, Sarnia.
We must have leadership that will stand up with strength and clarity to defend jobs.
I make this promise to all Calgarians and to all Albertans. I will fight for you.
The final push in Alberta today to get voters on side and to the ballot boxes. Tomorrow, people here choose their next premier and government. Will it be 4 more years of Rachel Notley's NDP, or will voters pick the United Conservative Party? For a lot of people, that choice is about one big issue, the economy. It is struggling in Alberta, but trying to decide whose approach is best to fix it isn't easy. I sat down with 3 voters struggling to decide, to talk about their hopes for the future and their messages to the rest of Canada.
My name is Stephen Carlton, and I'm 56 years old. There we go. I've been an Albertan for over 30 years. My hope for the future is that we have a government that restores global investor confidence in the province. And at the same time, I would like a government that respects and looks after the well-being of its most vulnerable citizens.
I'm Tamara Keller, and I am 44 years old. I have lived in Alberta for just over 12 years. My hope for the future of Alberta is that we really come together and we all work together as an inclusive society that everybody can feel safe and valued in.
Ready? Okay, go. My name's James Vi, I'm 27, and I've lived in Alberta all my life. Woo! My hope for the future of Alberta is it is economically diverse, socially diverse, and remains one of the best places to live in Canada.
Thank you all for coming.
Thanks for having me.
So we are, days out now. Would you agree that it's been fairly ugly and divisive?
Not at all what I expect from professional politicians.
Should come to Ottawa, Stephen. But it seems to me that the anxiety out here has been or is about the economy.
Jason Kenney doesn't have this magic wand where he's going to come in and wave it and then oil's just going to be back at $100 again.
Everybody was working on the economy. Everybody is working on the pipelines. We are all united in this province, and we need
we all want jobs,
market
jobs,
access.
Jobs. And we all want everyone to be doing well, right? Rachel Notley took a different approach, and I think she should be commended for that, for taking a different stance on things. It doesn't look like it's worked out, but she should be commended for trying at least.
And Stephen, you were laid off actually from the oil and gas sector.
It's been almost a year.
Yeah. So that must be a huge motivating factor of what's happening in that sector, what's happening to you personally, economically, all those things.
The layoff is very personal, but I have to look at what's happened in this province and in this country over the last decade. And this has been 10 years of self-inflicted pain on the energy industry. It's been incompetence at both the federal and the provincial government level that, we didn't get a pipeline built in the last 10 years.
And so the fact that the federal government has purchased a pipeline, that they are going through the consultations, where does that, because, in Ottawa, the rest of Canada, we see that as like, wow, that's a big gift we all bought you.
It is a very big gift, but when we look and say, okay, how do we get past the walls that are put up around Alberta? How do we get past that? Alberta's not going to do that by itself. It's got to be something that we do with the nation. Trans Mountain was something, yes, and if the solution is that Trans Mountain becomes an Aboriginal-owned pipeline, everybody's great with that. That's a fantastic solution.
James, you look like you wanted to say something.
I'd really like to see diversification of the economy, because we have so many talented people in Alberta. We have that entrepreneurial spirit, right? Really, and I think we really could tap into that base, especially here in Calgary. Vacancy rates are at an all-time low, and it's having impacts on property tax and the city budgets and everything like that. Like, I can't think of a better place than Alberta and Calgary for a new sector to grow in.
Well, isn't that sort of what Jason Kenney is proposing when he wants to dramatically cut the corporate tax?
Is it that simple? I don't know. I'm not an economist.
Have we seen that work? Like, I think we are seeing economists say that isn't going to deliver the number of jobs that Jason Kenney claims it's going to deliver, and it isn't going to be the silver bullet to solve our issues either. So.
But no one's going to be that silver bullet, right? I mean, you're taking a leap of faith with whoever you choose. Yeah. So what do you think is going to change then after Tuesday? What would be the thing you would hope would change?
One thing that if a UCP government comes in, we're expecting the red tape and the bureaucracy to be cut. Particularly in the energy industry operations, it's very difficult to get anything done now.
I mean, what I'd like to see after Tuesday is whoever wins, really take a step towards uniting Albertans and focusing us on a common goal.
Well, I'd like to see, some unity within Alberta, and I think that having conversations with folks that are maybe on different ends of the spectrum and have respectful conversations is important. But I also think that Alberta needs to really, as a whole, nurture its relationship with the rest of Canada and looking at a global scale as well. And I don't think that coming out of Tuesday and having this adversarial stance on everything and some ultimatums, if you don't do this, then we're going to do that, I don't think that's helpful for Alberta or Canada as a whole.
Well, I wondered that because it's almost like it's been a contest to who can stand up to Justin Trudeau the best or be the toughest. But I wonder how helpful that is for Alberta to be in an us versus them sort of position, and whether that's something you guys think about here.
I don't think in the long run that it is a positive thing for Alberta or for Canada.
It's great in the short term for getting votes, right? But if you're trying
to win an election.
Yeah, like if you're campaigning on something, it's great, get the base riled up. But in the long term, like, who wants to talk to someone like that?
I agree with James. It's going to be really interesting to see how we pull all of this together, how we pull our own legislature together, and how we pull the relationship with Canada together. And it's going to be really interesting to see the victory and the concession speeches on Tuesday, to see how they start doing that.
Yeah.
What would you say to the rest of Canada as we watch what you guys decide to do on Tuesday?
It's a complicated answer, but it comes down to, are we one Canada? Are we pulling together on this? Are we looking out for everybody's interests? Anybody that's criticizing Alberta for a climate record or an environmental record, they have to know that this is some of the cleanest, most ethically produced energy in the world, and the world is not using less energy. It's solar and wind and oil and gas and nuclear. Alberta is going to have a lot to contribute to the bottom line of Canada for decades to come.
Well, I think Canadians and Albertans, need to realize whichever way we end up voting, know that Alberta as a whole, we are all supportive of our oil and gas industry, no matter who we vote for.
Living in Alberta all my life, a lot of the times you forget about how good things are. I just want people to, just to read up and do their research and really understand what it is Alberta has to offer, because it's a wonderful place.
And it's still one of the best places in the world to live, even after 4 years of Rachel Notley.
Yeah. And even after Tuesday, it still will be, right?
The world is not going to end on Tuesday, regardless of the results.
Yes.
Okay, well, good luck, sort of, I guess, on Tuesday. And I hope mostly that Wednesday you wake up and you feel good about things.
Thank you.
Yeah, good to meet you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Rosemary, what's your sense of how people got to their decision? They seem to be struggling.
Yeah, they really did seem to struggle over the period of this campaign. And I would say, Ian, that the sort of ugliness of the campaign certainly didn't help matters either. So really, while polls show one thing tomorrow, we'll have to wait and see, because I think people had a lot to consider this time round. And we will, of course, be here from Alberta tomorrow. We will bring you the results from this province, talk about what has impacted this province over the past number of weeks, its relationship with Ottawa, a big factor as well. The National will be on at 9 Eastern on CBC News Network and on CBC Gem, and of course right after Hockey Night in Canada on CBC TV. And of course, you can watch all the results come in live. Our election special, Alberta Vote, starts at 10 p.m. Eastern, 8 Mountain. That will be on CBC News Network and CBC Television here in Alberta.
Ahead tonight on The National, Our moment is a spontaneous and emotional time in Paris as crowds watched in shock as Notre Dame burned. First, though, why the British government is looking at banning anyone under the age of 18 from hitting the like button.
It just comes down to popularity and am I worthy based on, you know, what people have reacted or how they've reacted to my posts.
Only a few hundred passengers survived the sinking, and only a handful of those are still alive to see the pictures of the ship as it is now. One of them is Eva Hart. This was Eva with her parents just 3 weeks before they boarded the Titanic. They were on their way to a new home in Winnipeg. They never made it. But Eva survived and still carries vivid memories of that night. We reached Eva Hart at her home in Chadwell Heath near London. Miss Hart, what was your reaction? What went through your mind when you found out that the Titanic had been found?
Oh, well, of course, my immediate reaction was that I, just as it always has been, that I hope they would never raise the Titanic. Because to me, just as a very ordinary individual, it is my father's grave, and I would rather it were left untouched. But today's wonderful news of this tremendously scientific effort makes me realize that if that sort of skill can possibly in future do marvelous things for these matters, well then of course I accept that it probably will be done.
Your memories of that night must be very clear.
They are indeed.
Can you tell us something about what happened?
Well, you know quite well what happened. The ship struck an iceberg, and I, like all 7-year-old children, of course, was in bed and asleep. But my mother wakened me, and my father went with my mother, and took me and placed me in a lifeboat, and my mother, and made no attempt to get in himself. But I really do owe the good fortune of my living to the fact that my mother had a tremendous premonition of disaster from the first time that she knew she was going in the Titanic.
Really?
And she said that to say that a ship was unsinkable, which is what the whole world was saying, to say that was flying in the face of God. And she begged of my father not to go. But when we finally went, she said, well, I shall not go to bed at night in that ship. I shall sit up at night and I shall sleep in the daytime. And that's exactly what she did.
That's
and
remarkable.
So because she was wide awake, we got on deck in plenty of time to get into one of the all too few lifeboats. So I feel I owe my life to that premonition.
But your father did not get in the lifeboat. Why was that?
Why? Well, you know the rule of the sea, don't you? Women and children first. No man is going to take the place of a woman or child.
And by the time the women and children were in that lifeboat, it was full.
Absolutely.
What happened then?
Well, we rowed away from the ship as fast as we possibly could, of course. And then it was discovered that the boat that I was in was very much overcrowded. And so the boats were all called together and people were put one in another boat and two in another boat if there was room. And in that transshipment, I got separated from my mother, which was quite terrifying.
You were separated from your mother?
I met her the next day, of course, aboard the Carpathia. She thought that I'd been dropped in the sea when I was put over the side of the boat. And I was too terrified to know what had happened. I didn't even think about it. All I knew was that she wasn't there, which was quite terrifying.
In Paris tonight, firefighters continue to spray down what is left of Notre Dame Cathedral. A fire ripped through the church, bringing down the spire and roof. The French president vowing to rebuild. The Mueller report will be released to Congress and the public on Thursday. It's expected to be heavily redacted, though. The report was finished last month. Attorney General William Barr released his conclusions, including that there was no collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia during the 2016 election.
In 74, and he went right at him. Cross-check right to the face, and he's gone.
And that is why Toronto's Nazem Kadri will miss the rest of the Leafs playoff series against the Boston Bruins. The NHL says it suspended the veteran forward for intentionally targeting Jake DeBrusk's head during Saturday's game. The league says it was a retaliatory hit and took Kadri's disciplinary record into account. This is his 5th suspension since 2013. Videos that play automatically before you have a chance to say no. Likes on Facebook that give you a satisfying hit of self-worth. These are features carefully designed to keep you on apps, more often for longer. And research shows that children are especially susceptible. It's why the British government is proposing new rules for social media platforms, including banning seductive features, like those Facebook likes for users under the age of 18. Some experts cheer the proposals, but as Cam McIntosh explains, it is easier said than done.
You want to talk to Ian Crook? Don't call, don't text. Just snap them.
What do you use Snapchat for?
Talking to people, you know, just snapping people. A lot of it isn't just, it's not even conversations, it's just stupid snap streaks.
A streak is kind of like a game. Keep a Snapchat conversation going, get recognized.
Everyone's just trying to get like 200, 500 and go on like that. And if you miss one day, it's gone forever. So it's like there's a big incentive.
Keeping up? It's that incentive that keeps him on the app. Even if counterintuitively for a high school student, he supports restricting the feature.
I think that's a good idea because honestly, like social media is just honestly like destroying people's mental health, especially kids.
The gratification of those streaks, Facebook and Instagram likes, doesn't only have Britain's privacy regulator concerned. Canadian mental health advocates say social lives on social media have become high pressure.
It just comes down to popularity and am I worthy based on, you know, what people have reacted or how they've reacted to my posts.
Right now, the Canadian government is not exploring similar restrictions. It's not clear how you would enforce an age restriction. Experts say it could require more data and possibly be more invasive.
I think that another question to ask is how the back end will be regulated. So how the analytics of the platform will be regulated.
You want a cookie with that?
This episode of the British Netflix series Black Mirror takes it all to an extreme point. Virtual responses to each physical interaction. Not quite high school, but at times it might not feel all that far off.
At the same time, like, there are different ways to communicate that are more, like, genuine.
For now, almost everyone seems glued to their screens.
That's really why I have it, to keep in touch with some people.
One snap at a time. Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, Winnipeg.
If social media is one battleground for the hearts and minds of kids and teens, then the sex ed classroom is another. At a time when society grapples with ways to stop gender-based violence, this past winter, Nick Purdon went to an Ottawa high school to follow a workshop on sexual consent. Here's another look at what he found.
Okay, well, welcome guys. My name is Matt. I work with the Ottawa Coalition to End Violence Against Women.
Here's what a sex ed workshop looks like. I've been allowed to sit in as students from A.Y. Jackson High School in Ottawa learn about consent.
Do you have a sense of what some of the women who go to the school have done today to prevent themselves from being sexually assaulted?
Maybe this morning they put thought into what they were going to wear.
They definitely sometimes take a car instead of walking because they don't feel safe walking.
Yeah, and there's a reason for that. So some of the things that I hear people say is, when I walk to my car at night, I carry my keys as a weapon. I won't rent an apartment on the first floor. If I'm at a party or at the bar, I would only go with friends. I would never go alone, and I would never leave alone. Most of the violence that women report, it's men who are doing the harm. Why is that? Why is so much of it coming from guys?
Matt Chaff has spent most of his adult life trying to end violence against women. Here in Ottawa, over the last few years, he's given this workshop to about 4,000 people.
There's a lot of pressures that we're under to, maybe without realizing it, do harm to other people.
The students here want to end the violence too. That's why they invited Matt to talk to their men's leadership group they call Man Up. Amir Shukla explains what being part of Man Up has done for him.
I think it's really made me see a little bit more through a woman's eyes.
Like another interesting point is like
Adam Telfer says every member of the group is committed to standing up to any kind of violence they witness at their school.
Coming into grade 9, I didn't realize rape and stuff like this was such a big deal until you actually sit down and realize, like, this is happening everywhere and this needs to be stopped.
This is based on research and conversations that I've had with people who've been in this situation or whose friends have been in this situation.
In giving these workshops, Matt has talked to hundreds of men in the last few years.
Like, doesn't it feel like the stakes are high sometimes?
I guess so.
And they tell him some of the challenges they face.
I sometimes hear from guys that gender roles are changing. People used to know how to behave. Now it's all up for grabs. It's confusing to be a man. I don't know what women want. I feel like I'm walking on eggshells. All right, so we're going to switch and look at the other scenario as well. Okay.
Matt hopes workshops like this one can help men clear up some of their confusion on how to behave in a relationship. And the stakes are high when you consider that most sexual violence is committed by someone the victim is close to.
You are close friends with Stephanie.
That's what the next scenario is all about.
She tells you that her boyfriend, Emmanuel, has been telling her it's time to start having sex because they've been together for 6 months. He buys her flowers every month and gives her lots of gifts. Some of her friends ask when she's going to sleep with him.
I feel like he's also building up like a sense of like guilt for her, right? Because he's doing these nice things for her because he's trying to get something out of her, right?
For him, in that situation, he has power over her. All her friends are on his side, saying that she should sleep with him.
So this exercise sensitizes us to the kinds of pressures that women feel. Even I could ask in the nicest way, she's still going to feel this pressure. She might actually feel like it's safer just to go along with it. That's what I hear people say, is it's safer to go along with it.
And here's the thing, the pressure teenage boys feel to have sex is part of the problem.
If you've been in a relationship for a long time, it's kind of expected that you'd start doing things sexually, and you're kind of weird if you're not. I think what is really hard for a lot of the teenage guys now is knowing what is right and what is wrong to do.
What's that like for you?
It's difficult. I really think our generation is going to be the generation of change, and I think that puts us in an extremely difficult role because we have to be the ones who define those lines.
Which lines?
The lines that you can't cross.
All right, guys, here's how it works.
Matt says if you're going to know those limits, you have to get better at communicating with your partner. That's what the next exercise is all about.
These are cards that other students have created that are like things they would say or do to check if what their partner's into.
What do you want me to do to you?
Realistic or not?
For me, that's not something realistically I'd say. I'd probably go more with like, what are you into?
Can I put my wand in your chamber of secrets?
Oh, God.
Of course, it's easy to make all the right choices and decisions when you're with your friends. And so as the workshop comes to an end, Matt challenges the group.
I think we all know what's the right thing to say in this room, right? We know the kind of guys we want to be. We know what our highest values are. Like, we know what we should be doing. But real life's messier than that. And I think the strength of your group is that you have each other. That's really powerful.
There's no denying there's a will here to change things. And if we're going to solve violence against women, that's not a bad place to start. Nick Purdon, CBC News, Ottawa.
The Moment is next on The National. Tonight we'll hear from Parisians united in grief after flames gutted Notre Dame.
I haven't seen the streets this crowded since the World Cup and last summer when France won. However, the mood is much different, much more somber.
You know how many theories there are about why the Beatles broke up. I bet you, how many have you heard? 35?
One or two.
You got too rich, you got too isolated, you got too tired. Lennon got too radical. What's your version?
That we'd come full circle. It was actually kind of a 10-year period, the main thing. It was a surprisingly short time, really, I thought. But we started off in Liverpool, and we wanted to go and be famous, wanted to write a lot of songs and have a lot of success everywhere, which is basically everyone's aim. You know, any group starts up, that's pretty much what they all want. So we wanted to do that. Once we'd done that, and once we'd conquered places like North America and stuff like that, I think we began to feel that we'd done it, and that all we were now going to go into was just do it twice. And for the Beatles and the whole thing, I think people started to think, we don't really want to do that. And I think the other factor was that we were also getting to the age when most people leave the army and get married, or leave the club.
You're bringing in the
college.
wicked women here. The wicked women who broke up the Beatles.
Let's bring them in. Bring in the broads. No, so I think the point was that during the Beatles was the only relationship we were really had time for. And we tried other relationships, but you know, they'd end in divorces for the other guys, and breakups and stuff. Because you couldn't really compete. No women could compete with the Beatles.
That was just a joke, bring in the broads, right? But God, it must have been wild.
Yeah, it was wild. Sure. Next question. She wants to draw me on this. How wild? And just what form did this wild take?
I'm thinking of something that you said about you and your own wife, that you'd sowed so many wild oats you were prepared to be quiet.
Yeah, well, that was true. You know, like a lot of people of my generation. I mean, let's face it, you know, for a young man, heterosexual young man, that's what you're after. You know, that's not trying to kid people around here. You know, that's what you go to clubs for. You don't go for the food. And
this is your reason that you've given for not going on tour. That the only point of going on tour is to attract women.
No, not going to clubs. I've given that reason why I don't go to nightclubs and discos now. Because the main reason I went was to find women, to be with my own peer group, you know. And when you get married, it depends who you are, but in my case, that knocked all of that on the head. I wouldn't dare she'd get a rolling pin out, you know, she'd kill me.
Did something that belonged to you and still belongs to you, or you may feel still belongs to you, die with John Lennon? A possibility of becoming Rodgers and Hammerstein, of having a mutually inspiring relationship, partnership, business and writing partnership for your whole life?
Well, that actually died a few years before John died. We'd stopped writing together a few years before that. So the collaboration thing stopped with the end of the Beatles, which was about 10 years before he died. So I'd got used to having lost that. And yes, something did die when you've got as good a collaborator as John.
But then he started saying those nasty things about you, that you'd become an Engelbert Humperdinck, that you were a bore.
It's true, yeah.
Did you ever reconcile?
Muzak, that was another.
Are you still a little hurt that you didn't get a chance to clean that up?
A little? You kidding? When someone like John Lennon says you're Muzak? Yeah, it was very hurtful. But one thing I knew about John was that he shut his mouth off very often about things. So that there was a point that, you know, and he deliberately wanted to say crummy things about me.
Why?
He was hurt.
This is CBC News.
If the story matters to you, you can always turn to us. CBC News, right where you are.
Parisians in shock as fire engulfed a piece of that city's history, and they kept watch late into the night, standing together as close as they could to the Notre Cathedral. But they weren't just watching, they were moved to sing and to pray. Their outpouring of grief is tonight's moment.
Lots of people are gathered to watch as this heartbreaking event happens.
The spirits are very low here. People are kind of shocked still. It's been quite a few hours since I've been here.
I haven't seen the streets this crowded since the World Cup. However, the mood is much different, much more somber.
There's a choir here that's really interesting. They've been singing for quite a while now.
Very eerie. We're all very sad that this is happening.
Of course, Ian, I mean, everyone watching that with the same sort of feeling today, just overwhelming sadness, like a strange attachment to a monument in another city, but one that feels really close. I mean, I've been there, other people have been there, and it was really very sad to see, although seeing the shots of the inside, what has been preserved, was a bit of a relief that there's so much there that's still left too.
And regardless of people's religious beliefs, if they're religious at all, there is something about hymns, about religious music that is stirring, that is moving, that is solemn, and in the context there, spontaneously singing outside, it certainly was moving to listen to, even from here. That is the National for April the 15th. Good night.